Welcome to a special episode of the CEO Glow Show. My name is Sheila, and we are joined today by my husband, Will, and also our dear friends, Kendra and Shane. And we're going to be talking all about being partners in life and also in business and navigating marriage and entrepreneurship. I just want to say that it's such an honor, and thank you so much, Shane, because this is your first podcast.
That's right.
And Will, you've had several podcasts, and Kendra, I just saw you in one. But thank you so much for being here, because we've worked together at PRB and also we're friends. And so there's just so many untapped subjects in terms of like entrepreneurship, marriage, and faith. And I know you guys work together and we work together also separately, but together it's all one thing. And I think this is for the business owners out there who wish they had maybe a more supportive partner, or maybe you have a supportive partner, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't come with challenges. And so we just want to share a lot of insight and tons of vulnerability around this topic, because I think there's not enough guidance out there, especially for beauty entrepreneurs navigating all this. Wouldn't you guys say?
Oh my gosh, yeah, definitely. Just being an entrepreneur in general, let alone working full-time together with your spouse, that can definitely add another layer of intensity, which we have definitely felt at times. But overall, we're super blessed to be able to work together and feel like it's honestly a gift from God at this point in our life. We never thought we'd be running a business together. Shane graduated as a mechanical engineer from Michigan State University, and we got married. I thought I'd be following him around with an engineering degree our whole marriage. And here we are running a beauty business, which we are business owners, entrepreneurs. We run Kendra Nail Studio, which we specialize in permanent makeup. So, brows, lips, liner, all the things. Our studios are in Brighton, Michigan, and Augusta, Georgia. So that's what we do and work on together. But we love it. And yeah, it truly is a gift, but it definitely has some challenges along the way.
For sure. It's tough. But that's really interesting, because like when you guys met, you had no idea that you would be running a beauty business together. So I'm curious, what was your expectation when we decided, let's build a life together? But you weren't like, let's build a beauty business or a marketing company together. Like, what was your expectation?
Just kind of separate lanes was kind of my expectation, that I would be, teaching. I've been a classroom teacher for 17 years. So I'd be doing my thing and then you'd be doing your thing. When you needed help, I would be in to fix a chair or fix a light switch or things like that. But for the most part, that would kind of be like your job, my job. And then over the years, that just blended together.
That is very American.
Yeah.
That is not
right. Your culture is
Sheila.
We're all in the family business.
That's not the Filipino way. The Filipino way is all for one and one for all. So not even necessarily like the Christian way, but the Filipino like mentality, the culture is like, your job is my job is your job. It's all one pot. We all work together for the same thing and all hands on deck on everything. So that is something we learned after we got married, that we had a difference, in terms of like culture and the way you see business.
That was in everything. Literally, I like everything, but just also for this. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So we talked through that.
Yeah.
That. I'm originally from a really large family, and I kind of see that because growing up, we did all kind of work on the family business together. So when we started dating, Will, like you said, he would help me with this or that, and then over time, I slowly sucked you in.
Yeah.
Oh, let's talk about that. How did you decide to finally work together? Because a lot of our listeners are probably wondering, I don't know, like full transparency, they're probably wondering, how do I suck my husband in? That's what she said. How do I suck my husband into like my business? And, how do I sell him on this vision? How do I sell him on this vision that I have? Like, how did you do that? How was that transition?
It happened really slow. So graduating, we've been together since we graduated high school. So we've been together most of our adult life, our entire adult life. I went to college and Kendra started in the beauty industry. So, I mean, two very different paths right away. She was doing nails at a salon in her basement. I studied mechanical engineering. I was in Army ROTC as well. So I was on the route to be an engineer or an Army officer, one of two things. And that was our path for about 5 years. She was working. I was studying, training. I graduated. We moved straight to Georgia. And I had commissioned in the Army. I was going on active duty. So that was kind of my full-time gig for the next 4 years. And Kendra, in the meantime, had kind of left everything behind. So she left the beauty industry. She left doing nails. She left all that. And that was it. That's kind of how we pictured our life was going to be, like either active duty or engineering. And then when we moved, the plan was to be like a wife, right? And I was going to work.
Yeah.
So about a year in, I mean, less than a year in, but we quickly realized that wasn't the case. Like Kendra's not content being at home, kind of playing that traditional spouse role. And it was creating a little bit of turmoil in the house. So she started training permanent makeup, right? And when she started training permanent makeup, she would go back to Michigan to take clients because that's kind of where her client base was at just over the past 9 years of doing nails and what have you. So that's kind of how it started. And then when she started, I was kind of like, oh, this is cool. Like you're doing a thing, make some money, keeps you busy.
I was happier.
Right. She was happier. Like that was it. So we were still both totally in our own lanes, but she kind of started to pick up pace a little bit and wanted to open up a location where we lived in Georgia. So she started just like, it was like slowly kind of pulling me into it. Like, hey, how can I do this better? Just like simple accounting things, simple Excel things, just like working with the county, kind of tackling some tasks that weren't directly involved with marketing or touching the client.
Exactly.
So it started like that, maybe like 2 hours a week, maybe. And then she started to dream a little bigger. We both started to get excited about business a little bit. I was just kind of excited about the prospect of like, okay, what could we make this? So I started helping more, maybe like 4 hours a day after work, 4 or 5 hours a day. And it quickly became like a second full-time job for me. This is probably around year 2 of Kendra working in the industry. So I was active duty. So I was leaving for
Camel every day, coming home working on the brow business.
Yeah. I was leaving at probably, 5 a.m. for Fort Gordon to go do my Army job. I'd come home in the evenings and I would help Kendra from FPM till 10 or 11 or 12 or whenever it was that we were working to. So it started really slow. And we did that for about 2 years, I would say.
And then it was Shane that really pushed me to grow the business past myself because you had read, while you were in the Army, you read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Have you guys heard of that?
Yeah.
We've read it too.
Yeah. I mean, that book is honestly life-changing for anybody who like wants to be an entrepreneur or has entrepreneurial feelings. Read that book because Shane read that book. And then once he read that book, he was like, I think like with all the demand that you have, I really think you should consider to hire people and like, let's build this. And I was like, no. Well, I'm not going to hire anybody. I'm like, if I'm going to hire people, you're going to help me for real. Like you're going to be in it with me. You're going to do payroll and all that stuff. And he did he's like, okay, I will. And so that's honestly how. And then the natural progression of that was he had like a year and a half left in the Army. And so the question was like, oh, Shane, what are you going to do once you get out of the Army? And he was interviewing around. Honestly, it was just God because we were praying about it. Like, it's a big decision for your husband to come work with you in your beauty business when he is like young in his 20s, about to get out of the military. He has cyber background, mechanical engineer. He could probably get an amazing job anywhere. And so I'm like, look for a job, see how it feels. He did 7 interviews with one company. And they offered him the job, but it was going to move us to Utah. And we prayed about it. We thought about it. And I was like, if you feel like this is your calling, like you're excited about this, then we will go to Utah and we'll just figure out my business. And that's what we'll do. And he came back. I don't know how long we thought about it for. I can't remember. But it wasn't too long. He came back and he was like, we came to Georgia for me but we're staying for you. I'm going to turn down that job. And it was just like crazy. Like my ears were ringing when he told me that, because I was like, this is something I never expected for my life, my career as a woman, for my husband to bet on me. Right. Was crazy to turn down like this big company that was going to pay him probably a beautiful salary and benefits and all the stuff, but it wasn't. I was so passionate, still am so passionate, that when he told me that, it was like winning the lottery. And so from that day, we're like, we'll try it for 6 months, full time together. And at 6 months, we'll reevaluate. So I think for couples, if you're thinking about going into business with your spouse, I think that's a really good place to start, is to like have a timeline where you're kind of practicing it. So you know, like, okay, let's give it 3 months. It's not really going well right now, but let's like evaluate in 3 months and have a good intentional conversation about it. Give yourself a timeline. So that's what we did for us. And at 6 months, I mean, we blew past that 6 months, and we're 2 years now.
I think that's what stops a lot of people from making a lot of decisions on anything, or, changing their logo to having your husband work with you, is they think as permanent, or raising their prices. You can always, there's a lot of things that you can take back, and, if it doesn't work out. And I think that's really good advice.
For sure. And I think like, what's the worst case? Like, you hate it. It's not failing to decide that's not working anymore. I mean, people are afraid of failure in any way, and it's not a failure. You tried, you had. For us, we like had to know if it would work or not. It felt like a failure not to try, I think. For us.
Oh, I like that.
Looking back at it, it's kind of funny because it is crazy to me that we even considered the idea of moving or going and finding a W-2 job. Like looking back at it now, we were in such a good place. We were both so deeply involved in the business already at that point, working tons of hours. It was successful. It's a labor or like a service intensive business. So you have to be in person. You have to be with the client. Can't be in Utah working remotely. So like there was just no, I don't know if it was like an ego thing, like, oh, I need a job. I need to know that I could get accepted for a job. Could have been some of that. But looking back at it, it's like, that's the easiest decision ever.
You want to 7 interviews?
7 interviews for the same company. Yeah. And I go, and I got the offer, and then, we got to think about, I'm like, I can't undo all the work we've done. Realistically, I don't think we could make a service-based business work from across the entire country.
So went on Amelia. It's interesting that you went on all those interviews. You kept going down that pathway, and then when you got there, you're like, wait a second, like, yeah. So it might have been just like the way you were kind of programmed, because I have a lot of that too, of like, being a protector, provider, husband is like having something stable. This was something stable to go into that. Maybe do you think that was what was guiding you down that? Maybe.
Yeah, I think it was definitely something it was like an internal feeling, like I need to be the provider. I need a job, or at the very least, like I kind of wanted to test to see what was out there. Maybe just to know I could get hired somewhere, and then maybe it was a safety net issue. I'm not really sure, but I think it was kind of wanting to be the provider in some capacity. But in the end, we had created a start of something really great, and it would have been foolish to leave it. But at the same time, we were at a really good place to kind of take that chance, like, because there's still risk to it, right? If you're not betting on an employer, you're totally betting on yourself. There's some risk there.
Yeah.
But we had a small record of success in the business, and I was coming from a good, stable job. We didn't have any student debt because I had done the Army thing. So we were really at a place where it's like, all right, we have a house. We don't have any crazy bills. Like, we were just in a safe place, like the perfect timing to kind of make that big jump. And it's certainly paid off now.
We've been able to like really intentionally craft our life to our passions and to each other. And I mean, I feel really blessed that we get to do that, because I know it's such a blessing, and I know how amazing that is. But then also it reminds me like what's at risk if we don't keep moving forward and building better. building better, not necessarily building bigger, but just building stronger, always making the foundation of our companies strong and healthy and secure so we can go the next 5 years, because we've been in business now for 5 years. So how do we go into the next 5 years and have even more security? And because ultimately at the end of the day, what every person needs, man and woman, is to feel secure, right? Not necessarily to make a lot of money, and because that's relative. Money is relative. It looks different for everybody, but at the end of the day, like, we feel secure knowing that we're giving it our all and that we're planning to be better. So that's our focus all the time, just trying to make our businesses secure for us.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, I love that you guys have that wisdom early on. I don't know, we're 42, we have 3 kids, so you
I'm 41.
That's anyway. Ecclesiastes 4:9 says 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their labor. And so 2 are better than, see, the cultural thing is a biblical thing. 2 are.
I would agree. It's definitely easier if you have. I remember when Shane first started helping me full time, that first week, it was like a weight, like an invisible weight I didn't realize was on my back was lifted. Because
feels so good to hear, Shane. That must feel so good to hear.
We're totally different creatures. Kendra's artistic, loves to be with the person. I like Microsoft Excel. I like policies. I'm a mechanical engineer who was a cyber officer in the Army. Like, my background created me to be technical and policy driven. So it's easy for me to be like, okay, I'll do the accounting. I love that. Like, I got to learn a little bit, but it was kind of right inside my wheelhouse. So I was able to, my personality trait meshes well with Kendra's in business.
yeah.
Because the things that she really doesn't like and the things that I don't really like, we don't have to participate in them.
Right.
We just take them off each other's plate pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing in business. Like, Sheila talks a lot about, like, don't get a partner. Partnerships are, like, tricky. Not like a partner, like a life partner, but like a partnership in business. But if you're trying to do it, I think that you need someone who has the opposite strengths that you do. It's like Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak type of idea,
Yeah.
And so having people, because we have friends that are like both in the same industry or the same, they're both artists or something like that, and it's hard because no one does their books, no one they. No, like, so then you get really lost because you have the same strength and the same weaknesses, and it doesn't work out well. So I think having Sheila and I are obviously really different too. So it's like, it helps to have, like, this is where I lack. Okay, well, this is what I like to do. This is what I hate to do. And then you can blend. You guys have the same thing. I think that's really important for people to recognize.
I would say definitely figure out, if you're going to work together as a couple or a partnership, whatever, what are your roles, what are their roles, and make that very clear, so then you don't end up in fights over a disagreement on something that really is not your responsibility. Like, I trust Shane that the payroll is done correctly and that the taxes are paid properly. I'm not going over him and being like, okay, let's talk about this. He's not critiquing me in other ways, Yeah. Well, and ultimately, like, when it comes to employees, we know like whose answer we're going to actually go with in the end, and we submit to one another.
Who's the boss? What department? That's really important.
Yes, we're bosses of different things, and even the team. If you were to ask our team, they would definitely say, like, "Oh, you're going to ask Shane for that. You're going to ask Henry for this," and they don't even ask the opposite one. Like, they wouldn't even ask me. If they couldn't get to Shane, they were not even going to ask me. They're just going to wait until they can talk to Shane.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, makes sense.
Funny works too. Speaking of challenges, can you share a time when your business stresses, like, impacted your personal life, your intimate life, your marriage?
I think it can happen frequently. Just anything stressful, like, whatsoever, if we're stressed out about anything, it can definitely affect us. We have to be really intentional to not get stressed out.
I think it kind of comes when we get really busy or really focused on something, and we kind of we don't take a step back from the business for extended periods of time. So we start cutting back sleep or just kind of start stressing about numbers, stressing about business. And like we really get involved in a new project and it starts to suck us in, then you turn the blinders on to everything else in your life. So, I mean, when that happens, you stop connecting, you stop having dinner together, you just kind of stop living a colorful life, and you get so sucked into what you're doing that you really lose focus of each other because you're with each other every day. Your partners in life, your partners in business, but it creates a pretty uncomfortable lifestyle that marriage doesn't necessarily thrive in. And you just kind of start to make bad decisions, or you don't fully think out your decisions. We bought a house one time, a house for ourselves. We were kind of in that state.
Yeah.
And it was a huge stressor in our life. We bought a house we never should have bought because we were so deep in work. We were, making decent money, and we didn't really stop to give it consideration how it impacts our life or marriage, anything like that. And so we bought it, and I told Kendra after a year and a half later, I knew we shouldn't have bought it, but I was like, I didn't care. I didn't want to stop what we were working on to even kind of take apart that deal. So we went through with it, and it was a huge stressor in our life. It was just bad. So I think when you get too deep into work, you're both focused on the same thing. You're excited about it. You're not picking your head up. You're not sleeping. Maybe you're not eating well. You're not exercising. Like when you go all work and your partner goes all work, it creates some blockages for sure in your marriage and in your personal life.
You want to speak on that, Will?
Yeah. Well, there's an element too when you're always with the person that the worlds get blended together. I've heard Andrew Huberman or someone talking about how with kids especially, but with everybody, your bed should be for sleeping. But when your bed is where you're working and where you're doing everything, all different kinds of things, then when you time to go to bed, it gets blended together.
That's why I don't want my office in my bedroom.
The same thing goes for your partner is if you see your wife all the time talking logistics over business, and then you're talking about, the employees, or you're talking about the mortgage and the rent for here and these taxes and stuff like that. And then it's date night. There's a lot of times where a date night just turns into business and logistical stuff. And it's really important to be able to switch that off and see them as your partner. I think that's definitely a challenge for couples that work together, that you have to be very intentional of turning it off, turning off business thing. And Kat said, those ground rules kind of for our date nights. We've been pretty good about being intentional of this is a date night. So we're flipping a switch in our heads, turning off that, turning on this one.
Yeah, it is a switch. It's a switch.
Yeah.
It's switchable. I can go into it right now. Switch right now. It's not about that. But you have to be able to access that. Remember your passions. Remember what you remember yourself. Remember what makes you feel delicious, yummy, and remember the other topics that's not business related. Remember that. And I think that's probably true for not just entrepreneurial couples, but couples kids in general, or just couples that have been together for a long time. It's they forget. I think we forget who we are, just who we are. And so I think it's really important for date night and things like that. It's it's not just a date night on the calendar. It's not just we're going out to dinner. It's way more than that. It's about remembering who you are as people, who you are today, and reintroducing yourself to each other, because who we are today is not the same as who we were 10 years ago, but it's also or 12 years ago. It's also part remembering who you were, and just reintroducing yourself to each other and remembering who you were when you first said you.
He's so good.
It's really important. And so to us, and having a successful marriage, not just a marriage that you feel obligated to. Because a lot of people grow old together, but do they like each other is a different topic. I think people just, love is so powerful. Love is so amazing that people will stay in just because. But you want someone not just that you're going to grow old with. You want someone that you're going to grow with.
Life with passionately, not mundanely.
I love what you said, Shane, about being life, becomes less colorful. That really spoke to me. And I think that choice of words was really impactful for me. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. I think I definitely got like caught in the work grind, especially when we were building our team, having to train employees. Like, I mean, I was spending 6 days a week at the studio, literally like 9 to 9 for 6 days a week. And I did that for a solid like 2 years. And I definitely lost parts of myself in that. But I am so passionate about my work. I'm an artist. I love, like, it just kind of, I flow into that. But when Shane was like, okay, we really got to scale back your calendar, like, it's not good for you anymore, and there were some signs, like, health-wise. And so when he started to scale back my studio time, that's what I call it, then I'm like, oh my gosh, we should go to the plant store and get plants.
You started saying you're up.
And we should go. I'm like, we should do things, but I couldn't even be passionate about like anything else because I was just in the grind, which as an entrepreneur, if you guys are entrepreneurs listening, like, there is going to be a season in your entrepreneurial journey, most likely, where it is all gas. Like, you have to go because you're building something. And once you have momentum, you got to keep pushing that momentum. It's like a big ball that it's really hard to push at first. You're like pushing all your might. Your entrepreneurial endeavor is what I'm talking about. And you're pushing it. And then finally it starts moving. And then it's moving faster. And I was to the point where I'm like tapping it super fast and just completely burnt out. He was the one to pull me out of it and be like, okay, come back to me. And so I think just being intentional about rest, because now we're both very intentional about rest.
No, wait, you said something to me that really impacted me, and I don't even know if you remember this, but so I had an acute panic attack last year in September. And yeah, and then I think you mentioned that you had, similar struggles, and then your mom told you, it's like, hey, Kendra, do you take a Sabbath? Like a real Sabbath, and really respecting that.
Yeah, and I had fully been taking a Sabbath. And if you guys don't know what a Sabbath is, basically a Sabbath in biblical terms is the 7th day where you literally just turn off. In the Bible, like, when they were telling people to take a Sabbath, the Jews couldn't even pick up their mat. Like, they couldn't even do the most like simple tasks because they were literally being told to rest. And so it's like, well, resting, like, we go to church on Sunday in the morning and then we'll come home and eat, but then you don't realize, but like the second your phone comes out or your laptop pops open, like, I was definitely returning phone calls for the studio. We were definitely planning on
for automation. We'll talk about that after.
Definitely doing stuff, but we were just like, oh no, this is our Sabbath. Like, we are resting because we're at home, but it's little stressors, that you're not fully shutting your brain off, and work does become stressful because you have to perform. And so I would have to go into my work voice, Kendra, to talk to whoever is trying to reschedule or whatever for Monday. So we decided to be closed on Mondays because we couldn't properly take Sunday off and take like a real rest. And you're not even your best self. You can't be your best self the other days unless you like fully reset for at least one day.
And it's one day. I just want to say that that's also applicable not just for family life, but that's kind of what a date night is. It's like, turn it off. Remember who you are. It's like a command. It's like you honor the Sabbath for your family, and also, number one, for your life partner, for your spouse. Like, turn it off. Like, let's go into that world. Let's rest. Let's be, just like, and that's why I think that, financial security is so important, because it allows, I get so passionate about this because we just had a girl who was making like $3,000 a month. And then she just reported that she's had $27,000 this month. But it's not just the money. it's more than that. It's because the financial security of it allows you to work on your best self, to remember who you are. It's that's why we do what we do. I watch these testimonials and I'm like, what? Like, this is what happens when you don't give up. It's not just about your dream. You're also helping, that's it, all the times I wanted to give up in my, like, I think I have a calling for marketing to like not answer that call. And, for people listening right now, you have a call. And are you curious enough to figure out what happens if you don't give up on this? It's more than just your dream and your family and your four walls. It expands beyond that. And all the lives that, we've been able to change as a team, because not just me, I didn't give up, but my team doesn't give up. It's like meaning. It's not just about happiness. It's about meaning, because happiness comes from meaning. But it's not always the same vice versa. When you have happiness, maybe you don't have meaning. And so you need to have a deeper why for all that. But yeah, I think really what you said, Kendra, like honoring a Sabbath for yourself, your family, and for your business partner, your life partner is really important.
Definitely being intentional, making sure that you have a moment in your day. For Shane and I, where we live, there's a lot of walking trails. So we walk after dinner every single day. We either walk like 1 mile up to like 1 to 4 miles every single night. And that's been huge.
So good.
As they say, you walk, your brain's getting more oxygen, right? So you're thinking clearer, you're moving your body, like it just makes you happier. So we do that every day, and I can genuinely say that has been the biggest improvement. And that's not even anything hard to do. Like, just get up and go for a walk. It will really solve more problems than you think.
It's that like whatever parable of like the two lumberjacks. One's really big and strong and one's smaller, and they're like in a competition who's going to cut more. And the smaller guy keeps taking all these breaks. At the end of the day, the small guy has a whole lot more cut. And he's like, how's that possible? He's like, I kept seeing you take his breaks. It's like, oh, I'd take a break to go sharpen my axe. So you take, to like rest up instead of just hitting with his dull axe. So I think that people get in the entrepreneurial space, and I'm in this world now too, just in my own lane, not just in her business. And it's like that grind time that you said, that all gas time. And it's hard because you're like, oh, I have so much to do. Like the checklist is so big. But to go, no, I need to take these breaks because I will think more clearly, and it won't just be all chaos. You'll get, some more order to what you're doing. I think it's really hard to do for people, especially people who are like go-getters, and they think that they see all these Instagram posts about just like the grind, and it's not really the way that it works. I think that's it. You want to work smarter, not harder. And I think that, as cliche as that is, I think it's true.
Yeah, and you're not playing a 2-year game or a 3-year game. It's easy to grind for 3 years, especially when you're just getting started. Like, work 2 full-time jobs, kind of work 12 hours a day for 3 years. Like, it's a long game that you're playing. At least in my head, that's what we're doing. I'm not doing this to stop doing it at the end of 2026. Like, this is our life and our legacy, and we'll see what it turns into. But we got to have the stamina for it. And we were both losing the stamina. And Sheila, you're kind of talking about like date night and nights out and all that. So during the work week, like, I'm terrible at turning it off. Like, if we're going out to eat, I'm probably talking about work.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's just, we're both passionate about it. So it's like,
it's our baby.
It's something that we both get kind of fired up about, and it doesn't feel bad. We're not like battering each other or like being unpleasant, usually. Right. But on Sunday, once we started taking that time off, we would watch a TV show or put my Crocs on and walk 5 miles really slowly. Just like we just kind of hang out. We don't really do much. And
which feels bad. It felt really bad.
It felt wrong
at first.
It felt like
lazy.
It felt treacherous.
Yeah, it felt like lazy and like, oh, we're not being very like good business owners right now because we're watching Netflix. Like, it really did, because we've programmed ourselves to be like in this like, okay, what's next? What do I got to do next? But you're gonna have anxiety attacks if you're constantly living like that.
Yeah. I have a question for you guys, because Kendra, you and I have talked, and then, like, I have a team of 29-ish, maybe more. I don't know, more.
We just hired these people to do our backyard, so they're part of the team now too, and they're working our backyard right now. So right now, like 32 or 33, whatever.
Afraid is the man.
Okay.
So we talked about this and how, people know that, you're a Christian. You're not necessarily a Christian business per se. Like I have people on my team that are Muslim or, non-believers or agnostic or, a bunch of other different faiths. But they know that, us as like the CEO, we're believers. And so we're believers in Jesus. And so we're very transparent about that. And like, it's not that you're a Christian company, but this is my moral compass. And as the head of the ship, I don't lie about things and I'm afraid of the Lord. Like, I think that's probably a good thing to have as a boss, is like, you at least have a boss that's afraid of the Lord, So whether you believe it or not, that should be some comfort to you. So how do you balance your role in being a boss, both of you, and being leaders in your business? How does faith come into play in leadership?
I think it comes natural, but also being a Christian, I try to live my life according to the Bible. Like as a Christian, I really try to refrain from certain things, such as gossiping, for instance. Most moms, like most women run businesses or just like women businesses, like gossip is a hot topic every single day. I know because I've been in the beauty industry since I was 14. And I think when we first hired, we set our first two people down and we're like, we don't believe in gossiping. We believe it only hurts you in the long run. It's not fair. It's just not fair. It's not good, and it has no place at KNS. And so we set the record straight right from the start with that. And then leading by example. And we've really never had an issue with that. I don't want it. I don't like gossip. We don't like gossip in our business. We don't gossip about each other. And so I'm like, if you guys ever have an issue with one another, you need to talk it out. If you can't figure it out, you need to come to me, but it should never leave the two of you, ever. So I'm just strict about certain things, but the whole team really likes that because it's a safe place. They all trust each other because of that. And we've really never had an issue with that, because every time we hire someone, we're like, this is kind of how our culture is and this is how it goes, period.
Are you upfront with that in the beginning about your answer?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, we actually had them sign something, didn't we? Yeah. Lizzie and Crowley signed something at the beginning, but I don't think them sign it now. We're just like, this is how it is, and they know we mean business. But also, like, if you were to see from the inside out, you would see that's just not who we are as a company. I mean, we love people ultimately, and we want to serve people the best we can. And gossip will hurt you in the end,
for sure.
Yeah, and when you talk about like Christian principles and stuff like that, I mean, Richard Dawkins, the famous atheist, says he's a cultural Christian. Or Voltaire, I think it was, or one of those philosophers said, like, I don't believe in God, but I hope that my servants do, or something like that. Like this idea that people buy into this concept, even from the non-believers out there, that okay, well, people who do follow this moral compass, this operating system of Christianity, are going to have integrity that I like, so exactly. Run a business like that, I think it does make a difference, even for people who are non-believers.
Right. Exactly. And I think people who are non-believers, I think they definitely respect that, because we get questions about the gossip a lot, actually, from outside, like our friends from the outside, like, oh, it must be crazy working with all women. Like, it's really not, because we set the tone of respect, like, right out the gate. This is how we talk to each other. This is how we operate. Like, as a Christian, I'm not going to gossip, on purpose. Like, obviously we have shortcomings, we sin, but like, I'm intentional about not doing that in my personal life and intentional about not doing that in my business. If there's conflict with a person, what I do as a Christian on the outside of my business is the same as what I would do on the inside. I would go to that person and tell them, like, hey, this happened, like, you hurt my feelings. And we've done that before. Definitely, because we've been working together with employees for 3.5 years now. You're going to hurt each other's feelings, but that's fine. But how you deal with that, it makes all the difference. So we go to each other like right away. Hey, you hurt my feelings when you said that. I just want you to know. I'm so sorry. I forgive you. Like, it's simple. I don't think it needs to be super complex. And my employees, they all know that I'm a Christian and we run our business,
Yeah,
to biblical standards. But
as a employee, artist, or someone that's looking for a job, I don't think you'd be attracted to the business. It's prevalent. We're Christians. We love the Lord. Several of our employees love the Lord. Like it's very much like a friendly, respectful, passionate environment.
mm-hmm.
And I think that if you were looking for a job and you maybe not atheist, but if you had like a negative view of Christianity or whatever it might be, or you just really rejected religion, faith, all of that, you wouldn't be attracted to our business. It would just push you away. It would deter you away pretty quickly. And not we're going to make anybody feel unwelcome or judged or unvalued or anything like that. It's just really at the forefront of how we interact with each other and interact with our clients.
Multiple differences.
It's really important to us too, because each of our businesses that we see a lot of new people. We don't have much repeat clientele. So we have women from across 2 states, quite frankly, from across the US that come to see us, and they spend 2 hours with Kendra or one of our artists. And it's like it's a very close personal connection that's set up. And we make it known to our whole team, like, hey, this is your chance to impact this person's life. It could be, the things that you say, the way you connect with them now, like you could have a lifelong friend, you could help them with something they're struggling through.
Yeah.
And I think if you didn't kind of share just that understanding, or at least value that understanding, which is Christian at its core, like you just wouldn't succeed at KNS, because you either leave, or if you are not passionate about people, we'd send you on your way.
Yeah, like genuinely, like you're serious about the work and you're kind. It's one of our core values is kindness. It's our number one core value. So,
yeah. I find too that, if I was resistant about sharing my faith for a lot of reasons in the beginning, for several years, actually, I didn't want to like turn people off. But I also got into the position, I think, from walking with the Lord more, is that how much do I really believe in this if I don't talk about it? I mean, we're talking about eternal life. It's awesome, actually. It's a great deal. Like, I question how much you believe in it if you don't talk about it, because it's pretty amazing. It's the best thing, like eternal life. Like, why wouldn't you talk about that? So I question how much you believe in it if you don't talk about it.
I think the world tells you not to, though. Like, there's a lot of negative things. There's a lot of critiques of Christians and stuff like that. They pick out the worst examples of people who are claiming Christianity and their behaviors and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you get lumped in with that. Yeah.
I get it.
yeah, I mean, that is definitely going to happen. And not to say that I haven't faced opposition by being an open Christian. I have moments in my life, but I genuinely try to make a connection with people in my business, outside of my business. If they have a negative connotation of Christianity, that is something that I can't help, like a preconceived notion. That has nothing to do with me. Hopefully, like an interaction, hopefully my interaction actually helps them be like, well, maybe all Christians aren't whatever they think. I don't know. I mean, there are bad examples out there. There are people who mess up. I mean, we all mess up. That's ultimately like the amazing thing about Christianity is like you don't have to be perfect. We're not perfect. I'm not perfect. But we're striving to be better every day. We're striving to please God and love people every single day. So thank God.
Yeah, I mean, we visited a church over the weekend, and so, my old pastor said that, even your best shot falls short of the glory of God. Like,
oh my gosh, yeah.
Accept it. Like, your best shot is like your best shot where you're like, oh, I did really good there. It's like, nope, it's still not good enough, but that's where grace comes in.
Right.
I think it's how you live too. Like, I don't think you have to as much say when you say like, if you believe in this, how much, you should talk about it. I think it's also, you should live it. I think living your beliefs out has bigger impact on saying it. There's a lot of people who say that they're a Christian, but then it's so easy to like look at behaviors. But if someone just is consistent in their behaviors and the way they treat people, individuals get curious. So like, what is it? What is it about you that you're this way? Oh, well, it's because, I love Jesus and I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing according to him. And they're going, like the other way.
And I would say that's exactly how we are in our like personal life, but also in our business. Like there's definitely moments where personally, like if someone has, been rude or mean or done something, you want to respond in a way that you're like inflammatory, right? Like, how could you say that to me? Like, whatever, like freak out, lose your composure. But like the godly response is what? To turn the other cheek. Just moments like that shows people your heart and character, I think. And running a business, you're going to have so many moments where you want to lash out. You're like, I told you how to do this 500 times. But like, patience.
Thank you. Go to see
People like that does. Being a Christian doesn't mean you're like super kind and just like a pushover. Like we are kind, but we have standards, and like goals, essentially, policies. We have studio policies. People don't like your policies all the time, especially if they're trying to cancel like that day. They're not going to like your policies. That doesn't mean you're not a Christian.
I love discussing the difference between being nice and being kind, because nice, the definition is essentially agreeable. So you kind of just go along with things, where kind has boundaries. We Christians are supposed to be aiming to be kind, not nice. We don't just go along with whatever. We do have a stand, but
exactly.
Yeah, it's niceness with the boundaries, essentially. Yeah.
You will. What advice would you give to, our listeners or other couples, considering bringing their partners along in their business, or like wanting this type of unity? What advice would you give?
Two things. I think one would be the stuff that I talked about at the mastermind, which is if they're not on board, then you have to share your vision with them. Like your partner wants to be the hero of your story. Shane wants to be your knight in shining armor. I want to do that for Sheila. And like, so if you can bring them into, here's what I need, here's the kind of saving that I need, and you can provide that for me. I think that's a good way to frame it for your partner. I think a lot of us didn't like, Shane didn't get, we said like, you didn't understand the beauty business. Like, not really, didn't really get it. So she had, Ken, I'm assuming that you had to say like, all right, here's my vision, here's what I'm thinking about, to kind of bring him in, because guys are dense when it comes to this world of like the beauty business, where it doesn't like click automatically. We're other adult life. So bringing them in.
Proof of concept before he was like on board though.
Yeah. I think that it can't just be like a pipe dream of like, I want to have this and I want to have this. You have nothing to show for that it's a possibility.
Right.
So
right. Exactly.
And once they're on board, then I agree with what they were saying about delegating, like, this is your lane, this is my lane. Yeah. We're in this together. We're shoulder to shoulder working in the same direction, but let's designate what is yours and what is mine. I think that causes like a clear distinction and will lead to less conflict. I think those are two things that I would say.
Yeah. What about you guys? What advice would you have for couples entering into business together?
I think starting slow is a good way. So maybe there's one, maybe it's like us where the wife is really deep into business and she's needing some help. I don't think you need to make a sudden transition. Mm-hmm. If you have a nice job that maybe you have Fridays off, or maybe you work till 3 p.m. or whatever, there's a really good opportunity where you can support without being fully immersed.
Right.
And kind of like leaving that safety net. So I think taking it slow is one thing. Another thing to consider for sure, this was a little bit different for us because we've been together since our whole adult life has been together, but I could see there being some serious conflict if like maybe the woman's running a business, she needs more help from her husband. Maybe the man is the head of the household, right? As the man enters the business, your role is going to be a little bit misconstrued because you're used to like running the house, running the finances, making the decisions for the family, whatever. Maybe that's not the case, but a lot of times it is. So when you go into the business and your wife is familiar, she's the leader, the CEO, you're going to have to be able to kind of distinguish the two, like separate in your head. All right, at home, it's me. At work, like it's her direction. Mm-hmm. And it's her decision making. So I could see that being an issue. So just kind of being comfortable with that, but like really being comfortable with that. Not just kind of being comfortable with it, but like fully committing to it. Because you can't enter a business years later expecting to take it over because that's what you're used to at home.
Yeah.
Right. Like like really knowing the roles and being 100% comfortable with those roles so bitterness doesn't creep in down the road.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're really good at knowing our roles, and we're really good at submitting to each other. When you're like really decided on something, then I'll submit to what you want to do and then we'll do that. And if I'm really like passionate and decided on something, then you submit to what I think we need to do. But I will say, no matter how you enter the partnership of business together, I think you do need to have a moment where you recognize that everything could fail. I mean, you could fail. We don't want to fail, and we're working against not doing that. But can you still, no matter how you enter the partnership of business together, I think you do need to have a moment where you recognize that everything could fail. I mean, that is time when there's a, huge, like one loses their job, maybe a negative thing happens where like a financial loss occurs and then people split. Well, a business is not only like your financial support, but it's also like your passion, so much time, effort go into it. Can you say, are you going to be happy together if, it doesn't really work out, if something along the way does seem to slip? And I think we've learned that along the way, making small investments back into the business, investments outside of our business. Like, if this thing doesn't work out, can we make it through this? Can we lose X amount, whatever our investment was, And we always come to a place where like, yeah, we feel confident in this risk that we're about to take. We always make that decision together. We never would make that decision without the other one being fully on board. Like, yes, I see this working with you, or I don't exactly know how we're going to make this work in the business, but I'm 100% supporting you no matter the outcome. Like, you really have to get to a place where that happens, because business is so like that. You don't know. You're always working on something new. Something that you try might fail. Something, you pivot and do something else. So we definitely learn to submit to each other and know your roles. And the company is going to help a ton, I think.
Yeah, that's really important. The whole, because you make all of these like big decisions together, if your husband gets laid off or something like that, if your partner gets laid off for a job, you blame the company and the decision making of like, their bosses and those decision makers. But like when you're running a business together, you have to be prepared to fail, and you have to agree beforehand that, we're not going to let resentment or bitterness creep into our lives. And exactly, since it's one thing, it's like the risk is higher for that relational thing. So, but yeah, that needs to be an agreement right from the start.
Yeah, definitely. I would say that has helped because, certain things that we've done haven't always worked out. Like that house we're talking about that we mentioned earlier, like that wasn't a good move for us. And we had to come to grips that we made maybe a financial mistake, and I wasn't upset at him. He wasn't upset at me. We're just like, it is what it is. And we're going to move forward and make better choices because of this event. Instead of blame each other, like, well, you should have told me what you were thinking sooner. Like, why didn't you say something? Like, we don't talk like that to each other. It's just off limits. We don't communicate like that to one another.
Yeah. The other thing I would caution is when you're in business together and you're kind of succeeding and failing together, or you're striving for more in your business, at least we forget to like celebrate our wins along the way. Mm-hmm. And you just become kind of like numb to big events that happen in your life. So like, maybe it's a big speaking event, or you hit a certain metric, you open up a new location, just like things that should be paused and celebrated about. Yeah, hiring a new employee.
Yeah.
You just become numb to like doing things.
I did that.
And then you lose that little bit of excitement for big events, like in your marriage. So it's important to slow down for a minute and be like, hey, let's go take a little trip to Charleston or whatever and kind of relax and celebrate this grand opening. Or whatever it might be. It's really easy for us to forget about celebrating our successes. And maybe that's the case everywhere, but I see other couples like have a good year, they get promoted, whatever, they celebrate together. When you're in business together, you just got to be cautious not to ignore those successes and like take a minute and say like, hey, I'm proud of us for what we did here. Like tell yourself you're proud of yourself. Otherwise, you just get numb to all the success of your business.
Or just the grind of like trying to make it a success. You forget what is a success anyways. Like it was so hard to get the first 2 employees. And then it's like, oh, now we got another one. Cool. We needed that. Now we got another one and another one and another one. But like, don't forget like what it felt like just to get the first 2. Like it was a grind, you know? And so just staying like thankful and grateful so you don't burn out.
Yeah. So good.
For sure. Yeah, it's going to happen. It's going to happen at some point, but yeah.
Yeah.
Putting up guidelines to prevent, it's going to go a long way.
Yeah. This is such an adventure. I have to say. Yeah.
It's an invention. That's for sure.
Seeing it that way, I think, really helps just see.
Quest.
I mean, yeah, it is. And it's like, to get to do it with your life partner is like, it's such a blessing. But one thing I got to tell you guys, it is not boring. It's just, it's not boring. Every day I wake up and I'm like, what's going to happen today? Who am I going to talk to today? What client's going to be here today? And like, every day is like such an adventure. And I think I wake up every day with like possibility and just what's God have in store for me today. And just my prayers just like prepare me for all of my encounters today. And so where can we follow you and how can we work with you?
So if you want to follow and connect, you can find me on Instagram at kendra.neal, NEAL.studio. And our website's Kendra Neal Studio, Facebook, Kendra Neal Studio, TikTok. Yeah, DM me.
Thank you guys so much for sharing everything with us. Yeah, thank you.
Huh?
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. It was really nice.
Yeah, it was good. But I feel like we got more to cover, but another time.
You like the podcast?
I like talking about some stuff.
Well, his first podcast, he nailed it.
Let's do a part 2 for sure. Maybe we could, how awesome would it be to do it in person, to film a part 2 in person? But
It would be so cool.
for me, this is the kind of content I want in the beauty industry. The real, the raw, kingdom mindset. So I hope it blessed you guys. I was definitely blessed by this conversation. So thank you guys.
So nice connecting with you guys.
See you.
Thanks for having us.
Nice to see you guys.
We love you.
We love you.
See y'all.